back live in the studio with Mrs. Busby and the old fella, and our guest this morning is Mr. John Fulton, Agricultural Extension Advisor, Supervisor. What is your official title, John?
I'm a county director.
The county director, or county's director.
Well, they left it county director.
Okay.
We used to be unit leaders, which would probably be more appropriate, but we're, we're county directors.
We're,
Maybe they think it makes you feel better just being a county director, and they slip in these other counties.
Well, it's been a good thing for Logan County and now the other two counties that John is aboard with us. John and I were visiting before going on air. I was asking about his sons. I want to just make a quick aside. Your son, your older son, finishing up and working on his master's degree, and you told me he's going to go to Hawaii to tank wash.
He's working for the Army Corps of Engineers, and he said he had to go collect water from a tank wash, and I was trying to figure it out, and he said, the great big battle tanks, they run them through a wash just like a car wash, and they have to check for noxious weeds and seeds, so they have to collect all the wash water to see if they're transporting those things. So,
like from another country to Hawaii?
Or even from Hawaii to another place wherever they're shipped.
Oh, that's an interesting side right there.
Yeah.
Boy, they got a lot to tell.
You didn't think about that when you started sending the boy off to University of Illinois as a freshman.
I didn't think he'd be collecting water at a tank wash, no.
Well, it's interesting, that's a part of his work with the Corps of Engineers, and he's be writing his thesis for his master's degree, and our hats off to him. And your other young man is going to be a junior?
The twins will be juniors, at the U of I.
Young men, I'm sorry, yes, I forgot that other little guy.
It's a set.
That's remarkable. My goodness gracious. John, I'd like to get back to the Master Gardener program, which has a significant impact. All of us know people who are involved in that. Not only has it been worthwhile for them, a little personal satisfaction of broadening their horizons and so forth, but it's been beneficial to the county. So could you talk about that and the genesis of the Master Gardener program and how that affects not only individuals but the county?
Well, and that really depends on where you're at. Logan County has been very project-based since its inception about 11 years ago. We have about 60 active Master Gardeners in the county, and they're project-based on everything from taking care of the county parks in Lincoln to doing some work at Kickapoo Park to working with the Atlanta Flower Buds group on some projects in Atlanta. And we approve time on their own. Several of them help maintain cemeteries and things like that, as well as work at churches. So they're actually required to give 30 hours of volunteer time a year.
Not much.
And most of them double that at least. And they also have some of their own projects, such as the plant sale, and they have an educational bus trip and some of those kinds of things. And it's kind of neat in Logan County. They still all meet as a group every month. And some of the larger counties, like in Sangamon, they're running 150 Master Gardeners plus a new training class, so they have a board type system that oversees the program, and they don't ever all get in the same room. And they do a lot of things like they run a help desk instead of a professional staff member answering calls. The Master Gardeners will answer horticulture calls, and quite frequently, if I'm not around and so forth, the ones from Logan County will get emailed down to Sangamon County, and a Master Gardener will call them back from there about their questions and so forth as well.
Well, that's a neat angle, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all an operating unit and the best way to get things done. So, but that's been one of their prime focuses. So we've got a fairly large unit with about 220 counting trainees in the system between Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties.
And to be a certified Master Gardener, per se, you have to go through the training, and then there's some exams that they take, and then they also have to have a project to be completed. Am I correct in that?
Well, they actually go through the 10 or 11-week training session. They pay for the materials to do it. And then they have weekly quizzes and a final exam and so forth. And then they are a trainee or an intern at that point after they pass the exam, and then they give 60 hours of service, and then they become a full-fledged master gardener. And their card says full-fledged master gardener on it instead of intern.
Yeah.
And then most of them continue on in the program after their 60 hours of service, because it's a fairly intensive thing when you think about bringing trainers in to do 10 full-day training sessions, and they'll include several specialists from the University of Illinois and horticulture educators from throughout the state.
And what would the 60 hours of service, what would that compromise? What will they do then?
That's off the list of the county projects. That would include things such as working at Scully Park or Latham Park, the fairgrounds beds, since that's home to the extension office, and the demonstration beds around the office itself. The library, we did a lot of work as a group with the signage at the library. They maintain a lot of the flowers at the Oasis Center, and then this year they had the Russell Allen Memorial Garden Day, and
He was a nice man.
yeah, and
He was a neat little fella.
the Oasis was kind of his little baby with the geraniums and so forth around there, and so he left the Master Gardener some money, and
Well, God love him.
they wanted to honor Russell. They've
That's nice.
purchased some supplies and so forth, but they wanted a Russell Allen Memorial Garden Day, so that's what happened.
That's good.
Russell was with what we call the Lincoln Developmental Center for a long time.
Yes, he was, and
And
he was a great guy. He was always coming in and asking questions. I'll never forget the first training class. We needed 20 to have it, and we had 19, and Russell came in, and I got a question for you, and I said, I'll answer it on one condition. You're going to sign up, take the Master Gardener class. And so Russell always said he was the world's worst Master Gardener, but he enjoyed it.
Russell Allen was a very nice gentleman.
Yes.
Currently, if somebody got to be interested in the Master Gardener program, at what point in time would they have an opportunity to enter your training program?
Well, they've redone the training schedule statewide. Now the trainings for our area are done in a combination between Springfield and Decatur starting in January. We used to be able to offer them in Lincoln every other fall and start in September and go through Thanksgiving time, but they've done away with all the fall trainings because they've lost a lot of educators and specialists.
Yeah.
And so they don't have the capacity to do that, and they've combined some. So about half the sessions are in Springfield, the other half are in Decatur, which isn't a big deal from people from the Logan County area to go one place or the other, but they'll start in January, and we just concluded last month with a new training thing, so there won't be one until next year. And there's an application process because there is limited size, and it involves more counties than just Logan, Menard, and Sangamon, and also has Macon, DeWitt, Payette, and occasionally some from Mason and some of the other counties, because there's only about 14 training sites throughout the state now.
I have a couple questions, if I may, about trees. Our block has been kind of decimated. The trees got old, and they got
Like other things.
a little they got a little hollow, and we lost them, and they've been replaced. And I hope we live long enough to see them grow up. But at any rate, all the trees at my yard seem to have, I don't know whether the proper term would be moss or yuck, but it's green, and it's on the trunks, and it's not just moss on the north side. It seems to have it all over. Is that going to hurt the trees? I assume it's because we've had a rainy season here.
And that's just it. It's the environment. you have to remember that the outside of that trunk is bark, which is dead. So you can peel all that off, and it's not going to bother the tree. It's a protectant layer. It doesn't hold the innards in or anything else. It's just a protective layer. So moss will grow on things that are humid and dead. And
that'd be me.
So does that mean I don't scrub so hard in the shower?
So basically, unless you can remove the humidity, you can get the moss off, but it's going to grow back.
Yeah. Well, so sanding my trees isn't going to help.
I wouldn't
not so
go
much.
for that, no.
Okay, and another thing, we had that little frost, after the leaves started to come on the trees, and it looks to me as if my trees, the leaves aren't as plentiful at the top of the trees as it is at the bottom of the trees. Would that be that frost?
Could be. There's lots of reasons for that, but a lot of the ones that, and it was an interesting frost. It wasn't really a frost the first day. There wasn't any humidity at that time.
No.
So you probably didn't have any moss on the tree either at that time. But it froze. And depending on exactly what stage things were in, it could have killed those leaves, killed fruit buds. I don't know. Maybe we even got lucky and killed the sweet gum ball fruit.
We
Well,
should
I'd like
live
to
so
think so.
long.
I know in some places it's at least reduced them quite a bit. But, 24 degrees will do those things, and a lot of people didn't realize it unless they had a dog dish or something outside because there wasn't any frost, there wasn't any humidity. The second day there's a little more humidity, so in some places it looked like a patchy frost, but it still froze things.
Uh-huh.
And so the top part of your tree, could be they're just a little bit slower coming out up there because I've seen things in the last couple days that are just now having a second set of leaves come out, because sometimes it takes 6 to 8 weeks to kind of see what you're looking at after that kind of an event. So give it some time and keep it in good shape. That means water when it's dry and a little bit of fertilizer if you're not fertilizing the lawn around it, and go from there with it, Judy, because that's about all you can do anyhow.
Yeah.
John, this is, of course, obviously the planting season for our farm friends, and you and I were discussing outside the office here the scheduling, and you indicated, I was a little bit surprised that some folks still don't have their corn in, and there's a fair amount of beans to be planted yet. That's kind of intriguing. Is there, telling those of us who are city folks, what's the calendar say about getting your, at which date do you want to have those beans in the ground?
Oh, you'd like by May 15th, but your penalties aren't as great to late plant beans in the latter half of May as it is to have late corn. And most of the late corn is because of people waiting to get finished with tiling projects in fields, or something else going on, or maybe even a broken piece of equipment or something. But there's not a lot of corn left to plant, but there's also some people who traditionally don't start planting till we get into May, and it hadn't been real great in May yet to plant. So they still shoot for the middle part of May, because it is rather refreshing to plant the corn and see it pop out of the ground in short order, and every seed germinated at the same day and all that, compared to sometimes early planting. You just don't get that evenness, and things kind of look like they're struggling, but usually at the end of the year the proof's in the pudding, and stuff planted between about the 14th of April and the end of April usually yields the best, but not always the case.
Do we have many, quote, legume crops in the fields in Logan County?
Well, if you're counting soybeans, we got quite a few.
I'm sorry, dummy. I accept that. I should have thought about that. But accepting soybeans, yes.
We have some hay ground, which would be mostly alfalfa or alfalfa blends. There's a little bit of clover grown, and outside of that, it's pretty well small patches. I know there's a few patches of certain types of clovers for honey production and stuff down towards Latham and down in that area. So Yeah, there's some, but it's not like it used to be. It's mostly corn and soybeans and conservation reserve acres and filter strips. That'll take up probably 98% of all the acres in the county that isn't timber.
Judith K., that's one of the places where I earned a half a penny or two poking wires on a hay baler.
Oh.
You haven't lived till you've ridden on a hay baler and all that dust and poking wires. I forgot what we got, a half penny a bale or some such thing as that. I don't really remember, but I remember it was an honorary way to make a penny or two.
I didn't realize that around Latham there was a honey industry.
Well, the Logan County has a fairly sizable honey industry, and you probably know Nathan Saucy. He's one of the bigger ones, and also the state inspector. But there's a few people that have their other hives out there. I think there's about 9 on the registered hive list.
Now, how there was a problem a year or so ago that the honeybees were disappearing.
Well, they've had several problems with honeybees, all the way from some of the mites that have infested the hives to the sudden collapse syndrome, and now they're kind of pointing the finger at some of the nicotinoid insecticides may be contributing to that we've used in both agriculture and horticultural production, and that's a wide class of chemicals that's become very widely used, including things like poncho seed treatments on corn to the imidacloprid you pour around your birch tree for the borers. And so those products are out there in great quantity, and they're beginning to get some inkling that may be a contributing factor.
Or part of it. I've got those little tiny, you really can hardly see them unless you squish one, red spider mites on some evergreens.
Well,
what in the world does a person do about them? Just hope they go away, or?
If you got red ones on evergreens, those are probably good ones. They're probably predators.
Oh.
If you've got them crawling in your house, they're probably clover mites, and they got through the screen. The spider mites and the spruce spider mites and all those, it really depends on what they're on and what time of year it is. And spruce spider mites are an early season thing. They should be winding down with hot weather. They're a March, April, and early May type thing, as well as getting into fall months.
But they don't hurt the trees?
Yeah, they can. Insecticidal soap's a good thing to use on them.
Oh, okay.
Well, our time has expired with Dr. John Fulton. We always appreciate your visiting with us, John. Just a cornucopia of knowledge as regards agriculture and how it relates to Mr. and Mrs. Smith on 8th Street in Lincoln, Illinois. You know, it's not just the farm friends who are out there in the fields. So we appreciate your time very much, always do. As John knows, we always try to come up with some saying. This kind of is a quasi-agricultural saying. It also incorporates my soapbox about our politicians, and it simply says, the man with the hoe hardly gets as far as the man with the hokum. Thank you for Viewpoint.